next guest on Persons of Interest is someone, I'm trying to remember when we actually first met. It had to be when you were working in the sports communications office, I think. And I'm sure our social media connection goes even back before then, but I'm speaking like you guys can see him, but I'm actually in the room with him, which makes this one good for me because it's always good to talk to people face to face. But Kevin Agee, what's your official title, by the way?
It recently changed. I'm now a content strategist with University Communications at Missouri State University.
There you go. How long have you been doing that now?
Just over 4 years.
It seems like longer.
It does. And I've seen a lot change in 4 years. And when a lot changes, it seems like more time has gone by than it really has. Essentially started January of 2015 in this job. And so much has shifted and changed. 4 years has in a good way felt like more.
So we're obviously probably going to talk a lot about social media, but one thing I always like to do when I'm introducing people and letting people get to know the guests that I'm talking to is who they are and why they do what they do. So, I'm pretty sure it's got to go back to when you were an undergrad and working in athletic communications down here. Because we'd always have to give our last 4 digits of our social security number to get Wi-Fi. That's the running joke when you come down to JQH Arena. But there's been what I'd call an illustrious line of grad students and undergrad that have worked under Rick Kinehart that some fine folks that have gone on to still work in athletic communications that I've some of my favorite people, you included, but you're still here at Missouri State working on the university side. Did you know you wanted to work in communications? How far back did you know? Was it undergrad? Was it high school? What led you to, I guess, take that first step? And then what led you to get involved in the athletic side when you were here?
I knew starting in high school that I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a creator. And it really wasn't until I did an internship for my print journalism degree in the late 2000s, probably 2010 or 2011, that really kind of shifted me toward communications, public relations, and marketing, because I thought I wanted to be a journalist because I enjoyed the access that I got, especially on the sports side. I wanted to do it, I thought, because it got me media passes to Springfield Cardinals games, and I got to talk to back in 2006, Alex Gordon and Billy Butler and a lot of the players who were part of that core Kansas City Royals World Series championship team. So I loved the access, and I just thought that was super cool. But what I didn't realize until I went out and did that real world internship experience was I hated journalism. I hated journalism as it truly is, not just the kind of the glamour of, oh my gosh, I'm getting to talk to this person today. Yeah. And I always tell my friends in the journalism industry, especially the folks who work at the Springfield News Leader, that I admire what they do. And I think it's important to support what they do because I did not have the stomach or the personality for it. It's a hard job. And that's not to say other work doesn't have its difficulties, but I did not have the ability to maybe be that guy someone on the other end of the phone didn't want to talk to, because your job is to hold people accountable, hold truth to power. That's not me.
It's almost what I feel about teaching. My wife's a teacher, and you got to have patience. You got to work through it. It's a personality fit.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing that I learned. And so when I talked to Lucy Amberg, who works in our College of Arts and Letters as she has a job similar to what I do here, but she does it for the college. What I told her was the best experience I had in college at Missouri State was that failed internship where I was there for just maybe a couple of months that semester. And it didn't take long for me to realize this was just not going to be a good fit. And it was just such a valuable experience because I went back to my internship supervisor and I told him, this is just not working out. I'm miserable. I hate what I'm doing. And he said, okay, well, let's look at some other options. And he said, how about the athletics communications office here at Missouri State? And it was kind of like, well, I wish I would have known that 3 months ago.
That wasn't even
because I thought that sounds really cool because I grew up with this university. I'm a lifelong Springfieldian, and I grew up coming to Bears games, basketball, football, baseball. As a kid, I was chasing down foul balls in the Metro Park parking lot before their GA or whatever would chase us down and demand we get the balls back. So again, things change. So I realized that was going to be an option that I could use to fulfill that 3 credit hour requirement. Yeah. And so, I contacted Kindheart in 2011 and we set up an internship for me, and I started that fall. It was just a 1 semester deal because that's all I really needed to do. And that was kind of the last piece that completed my journalism degree. And to be honest with you, I was surprised because I think it had to be a journalism internship, but it was flexible enough that they would allow you to cross over into the media relations side to fulfill that requirement. And that's really what confirmed to me, okay, this is what I should be doing.
So did you then think that doing sports communication was something that was of interest, like as a career or full-time job after graduation at that point? Or are you thinking, I'm looking for whatever I can take? Or what's your thought at that point once you fulfill a degree? Like, are you even thinking of grad school, or what's the process at that time?
I was never thinking of grad school. The plan was always, I'm just going to finish out this degree. And I guess, they give you this magical piece of paper at the end that you kind of redeem for a job wherever you want.
Right. It's like a voucher, right?
Yeah, it's a voucher. It's the most expensive voucher in the world. And of course, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
And you've got to learn that from experience too. There's no number of people who can beat you over the head long enough to tell you, no, that's not how it actually works. Until you graduate and you're out in it, you can't understand how hard it is to get a job, especially in 2011, where things are still kind of recovering, starting to kind of, head out of the recession of 2008, 2009, but you're still kind of on thin ice there. So, I was looking for anything really. And, thought I had a couple of things lined up that would work out, and they didn't work out. So, I had a job at a grocery store here in town that I did all through college. And so I continued working there, and that kind of, paid the bills, for the most part. And then fortune struck in spring of, I guess it would have been spring of 2012, that Kindheart just emailed me out of the blue and said, we have a need for a part-time, basically, I think it was a research assistant, part-time deal where they needed somebody to come in maybe 20 hours a week and start compiling information from the, I'm not sure what the word is, defunct sports on campus, gymnastics and wrestling. Historical sports. That's a better term for it. And I think that's what it's called on the website now. But it was working, a few hours each day, going through the paper files and scanning things in and just basically digitizing everything and pulling it all together so they'd have a record online of the people who, sweated and toiled, hours and hours. So they would have kind of a place on the athletics website. And so I think what that really showed me was I did enough in that internship semester to show them that I could take this on too. And so I did that for a few months. They were hiring for a GA for that fall of 2012. I think they had a few candidates in, and I'm not sure that any of them really blew them out of the water, because one day Rick called me into his office and said, would you like the graduate assistantship spot? And so again, grad school never in the plans, but I knew I liked working in that office. I knew I liked working on this campus. I knew I liked the people on this campus. And so I took it. And graduate school was an extra benefit, getting that on the house.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to keep going, and I knew that I'd found what I wanted to do.
So when you were in that role, you covered, which is now historical sport, field hockey, correct? Did you have any other sport responsibility in your time in that role?
My first year, I covered field hockey, track and field, cross country, and I think that was it.
Okay. Because I know like you get multiple, for folks that don't know the way sports information works, at most schools, typically you get multiple sports you're responsible with. At the big schools, sometimes you get one sport or you're, overseeing things. In a graduate assistant role at Missouri State, not that way. You get hands-on experience, as I like to call it, to do things that full-timers do, and in some cases multiple ways, and still working, helping them with the other sports too. So how'd you enjoy that?
It's hard work. There's no question that athletics communications personnel it's one of the most thankless jobs in the country. Long, regular hours for not as much pay as they should get. I think anywhere. I think even at the bigger, BCS Power 5 schools, probably not compensated enough for what they have to do and put up with. But it really kind of solidified a work ethic in me, because Rick is very much a servant leader in every way, and he's there to support in anything that you need. But he's also, with his GAs, he lets them go out and do their jobs, which is a very valuable thing. So I'd never seen field hockey before in my life. And I think that's true for every GA.
I was going to say, I may have seen it once when I was here.
I didn't know what I was looking at, and it was a challenge, especially in 2012 when the girls were playing at the football stadium at Plaster Stadium.
Oh, that's right.
And so the part of the job is live stats. You have to be the statistician, and you have to understand how stat crew works, and you have to kind of basically be the historian too. And you can just imagine being that high up at Plaster Stadium, but the people on the field are not 6'5" and 280 pounds. They're 5'2", and they're just practically dots.
Yeah.
So that was hard too, was having to understand this sport I'd never seen before. And I had to learn on the fly. And I think that was of great benefit to me also, just having to jump in and do something and figure it out.
Yeah. The old on-the-job training. That's what I have to say. Yeah. So when I tell people about my time at the Valley, and I'm jumping a little bit around, I always tell them what opened my eyes was everybody knows sports. It doesn't happen at 2:00 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Well, unless you've got the promotional, kids day basketball game and you fill in the gym with, 5,000 screaming third graders, but they're happening on the nights, the weekends, the holidays. And there are people that it takes to actually make sure that these events happen the right way, including athletic communications personnel, marketing people, operations people. When you get to experience that, does that open your eyes to what that world is? And you're like, I still want to pursue this. Does that deter you in any way of what that, you talk about the work ethic and what your hands-on training doing it. Does that, deter you, keep you in it? Any thought on what you learned working those hours and doing the kind of work that they did?
It deterred me in the sense that I realized, if this is what I'm trained to do, and if this is something where where people would offer me jobs in this industry, I'd take it.
Sure.
Because that's really where I'm at now. It's like graduate school, I'm not getting a doctorate. So this is pretty much the kind of the end of the road for hiding in education, so to speak.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wasn't terribly happy with it either, because of the irregular hours, because of just a lot of the unique stresses that come from a position like that. And I knew that, if I was in a professional full-time position, I wouldn't be the one called over to fix Art's stat monitor on the on the radio table anymore. But I was looking for anything.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was at the end of 2014. I was just kind of, casting my net as wide as possible. And I would have, and I did accept a position in athletics communications in that industry.
Really?
Then I changed my mind. Yeah.
Here in Missouri State or somewhere else?
Somewhere else.
Really? And you changed your mind because of just the irregular hours, the work-life balance, or traveling? Like did something else pop up that happened?
I don't know if you've ever heard that little voice in your head.
Yes. Tell
you this may not be the best thing for you.
And it usually happens with the job search.
and it did happen. I kind of accepted a position sight unseen. I got in the car, drove out of state to take a look at it. And I'll tell you what, it just didn't have what I wanted. And it wasn't the salary. It wasn't, compensation in any way. But the thing about being a graduate assistant in our athletics communications office anyway, is you're kind of, manning the front desk in the athletics communications office. And I went out and took a look at this job. And I'll never forget, meeting the folks there. Very, very nice, very gracious, very welcoming. And I walked in and they showed me where I'd be working. And it was at a front desk. And after completing a bachelor's degree, after completing an internship, after completing a research assistant position, after completing, I didn't quite cross the finish line with my degree, but completing 2 years of a graduate assistantship, really working honestly 40 hours. I mean, you're supposed to, not do that, but wink, wink. Sometimes you do because the job has to get done.
Yeah.
They showed me I'd be kind of sitting out there in a front desk area. And that's when I knew right then. I knew this isn't right, because I hope this doesn't sound, cavalier and selfish, but I wanted an office with my name on the door.
Everybody wants better for themselves. I mean,
yeah,
that's why you work hard to get where you want to be.
And I didn't know that was my standard until I got there and I saw it. And I realized, no, this is what I've been doing. I think I just wanted someone to give me that. I wanted somebody to say, you are important and we like you enough that here's your own space. And we're going to slide this placard on the door that has your name on it. And so I came back to Springfield, called him back and said, I'm really sorry, but this isn't right. It just isn't right. And I took a big chance.
Yeah. So you're back to the search?
Back to the search.
And fast tracking it through the search. I mean, it's funny because I was talking with a buddy today and I was saying that the process of looking for a job is like it's a job in itself. But what it's like in 2018 versus even go back 3, 4, 5 years, like the way LinkedIn is, the way online websites and job boards are, it's tough actually. Like people say there are jobs out there to be had. You just got to find them, but you've got to actually cipher through like the nonsense and people's ridiculous, must have 5 years experience, but we're offering this entry level salary. Like you've got to get through all that nonsense, and it's difficult. And it's sometimes you're like, oh, this would be a great fit. Oh, like it's like a letdown. So you go through all that. Ultimately, what brings you to the university communications side here at Missouri State?
I tend to believe that when you put out into the universe what you want, that in time it will come to you.
I agree with that.
I had kind of, spoken in my mind, just, hoping and praying that I didn't just make the biggest mistake of my life. I needed something to, of course, bridge the gap and put some money in my pocket in the interim. So I took a part-time job with KY3 and Ozark Sports Zone for a few months in that in 2014. It was pretty much over the summer around the start of high school football season, and that was okay. As a part-time thing to tide me over, I could have done a lot worse than something that's still media and writing and going out and learning how to use a video camera, all that stuff. So that's what I did for a few months. And then, I'll never forget this. And I love telling this story because I'll never forget the day that I'm mining job boards every night too. I'll never forget the day that I saw this job posted. It was in September. And there are times in your life, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, and whatever, where you go,
I want that.
That's it. And I knew at that moment, it's like, that's why I said no to the position that was out of state.
Yeah.
I knew it right then. And I cashed in every favor I'd ever earned in my life. Yeah. Every relationship I'd ever made on campus, off campus, and pushed all my chips into the center of the table to try to get this job. And fortunately, interviewed for it in fall of 2014, might have been October or so. And, somehow by the grace of God, I got it. And now here I am and couldn't be happier.
So, and for those that don't know, Kevin actually runs social media for Missouri State University. So you've got control of Missouri State Twitter, which has become it is probably the most visible. Take ClipSmart out of the picture because his own Twitter probably is the one that's the more visible because he's actively on there, but sharing information, timely stuff. I mean, you've got controls of probably the most effective communication tool that the university has. I mean, in terms of access, where people probably go first, like, oh, I'll check Twitter. I mean, it's just commonplace now. Was that daunting? You were like, all right, this is my job. Like, how does your job then morph? If you go back to when you started to now to 2018, how is it morph? Like, what are you doing when you first start? Like, and you can even go back to the first day. Like, here I am. I've got this job. Now, what do I do? And then now, the routine. You know what to do, like the back of your hand. Like, what does that progression look like now when you find yourself? I know what I want to do. I'm doing this now, and you have it. Now you're like, how do you make the best of it?
Well, I think you really can't make the best of it without great leadership, and that's what we have here. It's very similar to the culture that Rick has in athletics communications, where I'll always remember that. The director of university communications at the time, Don Hendricks, who has since retired a couple of years ago, was going over these. You have to go through these 3-month evaluations when you're new, and then you have to do a 6-month, and then you have to do a full year, and then I think after that first calendar year, you shift into just an annual performance review. And what he told me was, don't worry about it. Because everybody's at the university scored on this 1 to 5 scale. And what he told me was, if you weren't going to be 4s and 5s, we wouldn't have hired you. And so I think that really just speaks to the kind of culture that's around here. And it's a culture that allows people to do their jobs. They're hired for a reason. And so they're really allowed to come in and do what they're best at. And along the way, you know, everybody needs help, especially when they're new. But I had that, and I still have that in this job, and that's just made growth and the shifting landscape of social and digital over the last 5 years. That's what's made us so successful in this space on a shoestring budget. Is you know, every director, every assistant director on down. There's just a culture of empowerment, and that's how you survive and adapt in a changing world like this.
Was there ever the thought of, when things are changing, like Twitter, like none of us have control over Twitter itself as a platform, but that's your tool. When I was at the Valley, that was one of my main tools, but how you can use it, you're kind of like, oh, well, now you can only post this long of a video. Now they're taking away Vine, you know, different things happen, and you may have used those tools in a different way to your advantage, or, you know, in different ways to communicate with people. Having to go through and learn the intricacies of how people use it and why they use it. Is that part of your strategy and your everyday use of it for the university? I mean, obviously, you know what kind of content people are consuming from your standpoint. You can see what's popular, and obviously, people just like a human. They know who the human is now. Like, you've been in the magazine and you've been publicized. You talk to classes on campus. They know you're the guy that's the voice. But when you're starting out and you're going through that process of what's working best, was that a struggle to do, or do you just, you know what, we'll figure it out and deal with it as it comes up?
I think it's something that I wanted to just deal with as it came up, because I really believe that at its core, Twitter is a communication tool. Yeah. And I think we're just talking about communicating with 16, 17, 18-year-olds and older too. But it wasn't really ever daunting for me, because when I found out that I was going to have full control of the Twitter account, I went, oh, okay. You know, this is, see, it's like sometimes, you know, and I didn't know that going in. Yeah. But I always had this, you know, just following Missouri State in the past and following other universities in the past, I always had this thought in my head of, what if a university didn't sound like a university? Like, what would happen? And going back to the leadership thing, I'm so fortunate to work for people who encourage you to take an approach of, let's see what happens if we do this. Right. Instead of I think there's a lot of fear. I think there's a kind of especially when you're training young people how to use social media, I think the first reaction for a lot of folks is to go, don't do this, don't do that. You'll be fired from your job if you do these things. And I don't believe in that approach. I believe in empowerment. I believe in positivity. I believe in, here's a great way that you can make yourself look great on social. So it's an attitude thing, but yeah, I came into it with just the desire to try something and get beyond sharing links and get beyond just really not having a human voice behind the account, because I think it's insane when organizations and companies want to sound like robots because you know, they are this, when the truth is they're human beings behind these accounts. And I think in most cases they should sound like human beings. They should be on brand, but they should sound like human beings. And I don't think it started off like that on the first day by any means, because I was still just, you're still trying to figure out what exactly am I doing here.
What that voice is supposed to sound like.
What it's supposed to sound like. But the turning point was actually after the Kansas City Royals won the World Series in 2015. And I'll never forget how many students were asking us on Twitter to close the university on the day of the parade in Kansas City. And these things were coming in fast and furious. And I'd have to go back to look at the timeline to see if we'd already started to shift the voice a little bit that kind of got that willingness for people to talk to us on there. But they were coming in just almost, 10 every half hour or something like that. And it reached a point where I had enough as the social media manager. And so I quote tweeted one of them and said, "We're not closing the university. You are all old enough to make your own decisions." And that got more engagement than any tweet I think we'd ever sent. And I think you got to listen to your data. And I was surprised, like, oh, well, okay. I was really short and matter of fact and to the point, but they seemed to like it.
Yeah. I think I may have responded with, "You didn't close it when the Cardinals won the World Series. So don't close it when the Royals win."
Yeah, but I think that's really what started the Twitter account down this road.
Right.
And it's a lesson in trying stuff.
An aha
moment. It's a lesson in listening to your data. And when leadership asks you, "Hey, what are you doing?" you show them, look at this.
Yeah. That's funny. I would have never guessed that. Would have probably gone back to. And funny you say that. That's one of the early ones you remember. I'm sure that's one of the ones you remember because for folks that don't know, Kevin is a big Kansas City Royals fan as well. So I definitely want to ask, what since you bring it up, looking back on it, your reaction, your feeling, I'm sure it's jubilation, but when the Royals win in 15 and have 2 years of success and glory, how much did you enjoy that?
I'll tell you, the part I enjoyed the most was actually not the 2 pennants, and it was not the World Series win. What I enjoyed the most was the night in Chicago when Salvador Perez caught pop-up in front of home plate, and it sealed the playoff spot.
Really?
That for me was the big emotional moment because, I was born about 10 months before they won the World Series in 85. And so I have no memory of that. Yeah. And so it's technically not true that they had missed the playoffs every year for my entire life, but it might as well have been. No recollection of 1985 whatsoever. But that's the moment that made me the most happy and emotional because it was like they got that off of their backs. Yeah. 29 years without a playoff appearance is hard to do.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of bad luck. It takes a lot of bad decisions. And I think getting to the playoffs is probably the big achievement in professional sports. I understand, winning championships is what it's all about when you listen to sports radio and stuff. But when you go 162 games and you are one of the last, now 10 standing in Major League Baseball out of 30 teams.
Pretty good feat.
You've done something. And when you haven't done it in 29 years, that meant a whole lot. The wild card game in 2014 was just one of the nuttiest things I think I've ever seen. And it's one of the best games. I think anyone would tell you it's one of the best games they've ever seen. And that was another one that was bigger than the World Series championship, because if they don't win that game, there's a chance, well, they certainly don't go to the World Series in 14. There's a chance they don't win the World Series in 15 because you're shifting the space-time continuum or whatever.
Right.
But just getting over that hump of okay, it's like, okay, you were in the wild card game. Is that really the playoffs? They had a huge comeback, won that game, and then, swept the Angels, who had the best record in the American League. They swept the Orioles, who were the American League champions. And had it not been for Madison Bumgarner, they would have won the World Series. But I think it was also incredible, the resolve that those guys had to come back and get back in 2015. And to this day, there's only been two American League teams that have gone to back-to-back World Series in the last 21 years. And
I'm trying to guess who the other one is. I'm not going to take very long because that's not good. That's not good podcast audio to see me just sit here and think of who the other team is. Is it the Yankees?
It's the Yankees.
Oh, okay. Well, that's too easy.
They went to 3 in a row in 98, 99, and 2000. And so that's doing something too.
Yeah, you're doing something that only the Yankees
It's
did.
next to impossible to go to back-to-back World Series. Then on top of it to win the second one.
Yeah.
When they had Alex Gordon on third base as the tying run in 14 and just couldn't quite get him across. But yeah, winning in 15, winning the title in 15 was a weird emotion for me. It wasn't absolute jubilation because I was watching it from home, and Wade Davis struck out Wilmer Flores with that called third strike over the inside corner. And I just kind of sat back and went, huh.
This is really happening.
I was like,
interesting.
Wow. Okay. So the Kansas City Royals, it was just hard to process.
Yeah.
The Kansas City Royals have been terrible for most of my life.
And here they are.
And here they are, last team standing. And then you start to think about all the teams that haven't won one and even longer, and all the teams that have never been there. Very, very special.
Yeah.
Very, very special. And I don't think any Royals fan would trade it.
Yeah. So me as a Cardinal fan, I always try to keep in perspective, because since I've been alive, I don't have any recollection of 85. I was 5 years old in 85. So, but the Cardinals still had their share of success. 87, the 90s, 2006, 2011. Lots to cheer about. I find it really hard to be upset about the Cardinals, struggling or, not making the playoffs as they did in the last couple of years or whatever it might be. You as a Royals fan, with coming now a more recent championship 2015, but now them struggling lately, still keeping it in perspective that, hey, we just had a championship not that long ago, like calm down kind of thing. Like I see you do that with some fans, like especially with some of the people on Twitter that say some of the more ridiculous stuff, which I get. Like I don't even bother like debating with Cardinal fans about trades or whatnot. I don't know what a GM does. I'm not a baseball manager. I played the Little League for a little bit. I go out and play slow pitch softball. I don't know anything. Like I'm not going to. These are experts. Like that's why they get paid. They're athletes and they're GM. Like they know what they're doing. Do you like look at the Royals current day and like, let's just enjoy it kind of thing? And like, do you cringe when you see fans saying things that are just like ridiculous? Because I know I just do it all the time with the Cardinals.
I wish I had your restraint. I really do, because I think deep down I'm a cranky 65-year-old man or older.
Is that when it comes to sports or just in general?
I think that's just been my personality for a lot of my life, and it comes from my grandfather was a stubborn guy, my dad's a stubborn guy, and I'm a stubborn guy too. So
that's okay. Bloodlines.
It's bloodlines. I can't help it. So I should not get in as many Twitter arguments as I do. I always keep it above board and everything. But it's hard to. It is hard to lose 108 games, 3 years after you won the World Series. But I also understand that is the reality of professional sports. Nothing lasts forever. And that's the reality for small market baseball teams.
And you said it there. That's a big part of it. Like having a franchise in a quote unquote small market to sustain that. Like, that's why I always tell myself, my friends, being a Cardinals fan, we're pretty fortunate to still have success and finish third or second, get to the playoffs as many years or get to the NLCS or DS. Like, we haven't really, there's a lot of fans of other franchises that would love to be Cardinal fans, and that's why they hate Cardinal fans. Like, I get it. When people hate the Patriots, there are people that hate the Cardinals like the Patriots. But we don't think that way. And I'm sure Royals fans are like, really? The Cardinals again? Like, anybody but the Cardinals. And I know, I see it on your face right now.
There is a little bit of jealousy there, absolutely, because it's Missouri.
Yeah. And that's the other part too.
It's Missouri, but it comes down to dollars, and it comes down to that the Royals have a very poor, underwhelming television deal that's fortunately coming due. So they'll be able to get some more money out of that. And the Cardinals have a gargantuan television deal. And that's where really the difference lies when it comes to being able to retain players. But at the same time, I also recognize that the people who built the Royals from the ashes into a World Series champion are the same people who are undertaking that again. And I think the encouraging thing is they made a lot of mistakes along the way, and they still won the World Series, and they still won 2 pennants. And their mistakes are now the bill has come due because of the decisions that they made, not drafting as well, I think, as they should have in hindsight. But they're paying for it now. But I think that's kind of encouraging that Dayton Moore is a bright, good baseball guy. He has built an amazing culture in Kansas City to where, when they were terrible in the 90s, we didn't have the major league hits and stolen bases leader on those teams. And they have that now in Whit Merrifield on a 54-win team. They didn't have a guy who could develop into an MVP candidate in Adalberto Mondesi. They didn't have a player like that. And I mean, he could steal 80 bases this year and hit, and he's 30 home run power, 80 stolen base speed, elite defense at shortstop. So they didn't have those guys when they were terrible before. So there's a lot of reasons for optimism.
Yeah. Well, and that's why they play the games, right? And
that's right.
That's why it's baseball too. It's not like there's, I'd say never a chance, but sometimes for some teams they know going in there's not a chance.
And I think they know that going into this year too. They are not. They always say we're not going to put limits on our players, but they understand at the same time. Although they've said we're going to stop talking about the rebuild because they don't want their players to have that mindset of we're rebuilding. It doesn't matter if we lose. There's an expectation of winning because that's what major league ball players are paid to do.
Right.
But I think the front office behind closed doors has realistic expectations that we'll be better, but we're not probably going to be heading to the playoffs.
I didn't realize we'd turn this into a sports soccer radio podcast, but that's good. That's how I like this thing to go, just to sort of go off the cuff. But I do want to jump back into some social media stuff because now that I don't manage a social media account anymore, I have a totally different perspective. And it's the same thing with sports too for me now, where I have this new respect for sports information people and people that work in sports and what they do on a regular basis after doing it for 7 years. Same thing for people that manage Twitter accounts. Because now I know how to use TweetDeck and look at mentions of other accounts and see all what people are dealing with. And I just have a different understanding of it. So I'm curious now, and I mentioned this before, how social media is just morphed over time and it continues to morph, and it always will probably. People still will want the edit button on Twitter, and I want the edit button on Twitter, and being visual is a thing. And I try myself not to sit back and armchair quarterback social media now that I don't have one, because what's the point in that? But for you, when I was doing it for the Valley, I had to deal with a lot of nonsense. I mean, a lot of nonsense. Picking player of the year for whatever sport or player of the week and why this person didn't get it. And, they're tweeting just back at the account. That's ridiculous. how does this person not get it? She had 17 goals in 2 games. Like, well, I'm obviously overdoing it there, but you get the point. And you just sort of like, really? Like, come on, just, I'm not the one here solely deciding to find a coach for whatever. You have that here in Missouri State too. There are several things that are, I don't know the correct way of saying it, but things that students or, parents, whoever they want to, sound off about. How do you manage the mentality of, all right, back away or set them straight? Because at a university as large as Missouri State is, and I don't think people understand that either. Missouri State's a big school, like the second largest in the state of Missouri. So it's not like we downplay like athletics and things like that about being quote unquote non-BCS mid-major, but take sports out of it. The university itself, it's a big school. I can't imagine just the left and right of, students, faculty, staff, financial situation of the state. There are a lot of different things that you probably see or hear from or tagged in. How do you manage that? Like it's a loaded question, I know, but you've seen a lot and you've dealt with a lot in the time you've been in that role and been in this role. I guess I'll put it this way. I'll start this way. What's one of the craziest ones that you're like, really, I'm tagged in this? Like, and how do you handle it? Do you have to call across campus to a department and get the answer? What's the structure of how you get the answers for someone that knows to go to at Missouri State first and doesn't know to go to the College of Business Twitter account?
Well, I think in general, I try to be as helpful as I can possibly be, while at the same time understanding that I am one guy behind a keyboard or one guy behind a smartphone, and there's only so much I can do myself. So it's a tightrope I think you have to walk with wanting to help people, but at the same time, sometimes letting them know, hey, you need to talk to this office. And a lot of the times it's a situation where you got to say, here's their phone number, please contact financial aid, contact financial services. We get a lot of private Facebook messages from prospective international students.
Okay.
And that's something that I can expect to be in our Facebook inbox almost every morning because of when I arrive at the office, because of the time differences from places around the globe. And so I always have their contact information at the ready. And we're looking at, we recently just bought into Buffer with the idea of, in the near future, we'd like to get the social media folks from the international student services side and dining and new student and family programs and residence life, get them into Buffer also, so we can assign. Yeah. So maybe and it's all to better help the customer.
Sure.
So we can get it directly to the people who can actually take care of the issue. You asked what the strangest.
Yeah.
Don't want to go into a lot of detail here. So I'll kind of talk around it, but you'll know what I'm referring to. We had a situation with our football team a couple of years ago.
I think I do know what you're probably going to get to.
And sometimes things come up where there is no playbook for something like that.
Yeah.
But it also illustrates the fact that there are these kind of minor questions such as, hey, I haven't received my financial aid refund. When is that coming? And then there's things that are actually very, very serious. And you know it when you see it.
Right.
You know that from your time with the Valley. You know what a complaint is about something kind of trivial and something that's, this could be very bad for everybody. So anyway, that situation came up. And one of the things I started doing right off the bat was just, if I saw anything on social that I thought this seems not good, then I would, send it to my boss and our vice president, just so they are aware and they could run it up the chain of command to figure out what's going on, and so we can get some messaging going. So that was the strangest one I think I've ever seen, and that was one of the few times where I had to take a couple of days off, because when you're managing a social media account, you try not to take it personally. But when you are as invested into something that you built, and all I want for anybody at Missouri State is just to be happy. Like that's the whole mission behind all of this is I love Missouri State and I want everyone else to love Missouri State.
This is a guy saying this to you, by the way, in a Missouri State quarter zip and Missouri State baseball hat. Like,
well, Derek's got a quarter zip on too, so.
And I had a hat on.
And he had a hat on when he came in.
But just for perspective, like as an alumni, as invested I am, you literally, I mean, I joked and I called Bill Rowe Mr. Missouri State. I mean, he's always at campus. Like, I can't think of how many times I could show up somewhere, Bill Rowe's there in a maroon jacket.
He's everywhere.
But you might be like the second Mr. Missouri State after Cliff Smart now. Like the person running the Missouri State Twitter account is just as much invested as the president's university.
And somebody in our office mentioned that to me the other day, another member of our team who runs social media up here. And she told me, like, you are actually kind of you are the voice, or not. I don't like to say me, but we as a team, with the video and the photo and the folks who run all of or assist with running the university accounts. We're kind of it, when you consider the landscape. And I'd never thought of that before, and it scared the daylights out of me. Like, oh, yeah, I'd never thought of that before.
I had someone say that to me at the Valley. I'm like, no, but. Yeah. But I mean, actually, when they're asking you, how do I watch the game? How do I do this? And you have the answer. Like, you probably know your way around the Missouri State website because people ask questions. You know exactly where to go and link them to it or find the answer or copy. Do whatever you got to do to send the right way. That's exactly the mentality I had when someone said, I can't watch this game. I mean, I got to the point where I was making template graphics about if the game's not on ESPN3 and you can't watch it, but you're in this state, you're probably blacked out. So you should watch it on this channel and here are the other channel. Like, I knew the back of my hand what I needed to tell people after a certain point in time. Like, if I didn't, I knew who to text to get the answer and then respond to it. That's what being the voice is. Like, either who to contact to get the answer that you need to respond, or like jokingly how to respond, or, have the voice to respond the appropriate way. That's actually like, and again, someone said it to me, it's kind of like, oh, yeah. And then you think about it, like, as you invest in it and you take it serious and you're like, yeah, that is sort of what I'm trying to accomplish here. And you don't think of it in that perspective, but I guess when you hear from somebody else saying it, that's what it is. And you say that because you do a good job at it. That's why. And when people recognize that, I mean, that's what they're getting at, is that, wow, this is consistent. It's standard. It's what we come to expect. It's okay to have fun on social media. It's okay to have a little bit of fun, but then when it's serious, how to treat it. So, like, you've walked that line pretty well, and like, obviously, it takes time to figure that out, but you've got something going there. So, I mean, do you see where the next step, as you mentioned, having a team, having it more expanded to the other departments, is that the next logical thing where it's sharing the voice amongst other people, so you're not solely, when I say solely, but I know you guys have the team set up, but across the university wide, like involving College of Business, someone to chime in or respond, or I guess, you see the structure change, or do you let them independently still do their own thing?
Well, everybody in departments and colleges, offices around campus are more than welcome to start their own social media networks. I think the key going forward is going to be staffing, because you cannot do this job with a part-time person. You cannot do this job just by giving it to the student, because, hey, they're on social media all the time. Let's let them do it. And it's not that they can't do a good job at it. It's that they don't have the time to focus on it. So I say that to mention the fact that funding is the most important issue for Missouri State right now in this legislative session. And I think the funding is important to keep tuition low. We want to keep it where it is and remain really one of the most affordable universities in the country, especially for the value that you get out of what you pay, the quality of education you get. But I think it's also a big deal because, of course, the more money that we can get appropriated from the state might mean the ability to add a job here or there. And I would, if that happens, and President Smart and his chief of staff, Ryan DeBoof, and Jeff City, it seemed like they lived in Jeff City the last 2 weeks to just start to have these conversations. But I think that's what it's going to take. I would love to have further adoption of the Missouri State brand. That's a big thing something I've learned in this job is how long it takes to have full saturation and adoption of a brand. And we're still working on that, and we'll continue to work on that. And we have semesterly training sessions where we invite anybody who's interested on campus, faculty, staff who want to learn more about the Missouri State brand and how to utilize it, not just on social, but in the digital space.
Sure.
How should your blog look? How should your website look? What kinds of content can you share from your blog to social media, and how do you make it look nice? So that's the approach that we're taking, is trying to teach people how to fish. And I greatly admire the jobs that everyone on this campus does to run their social media accounts effectively. And I think that's something that I'm most proud of, is in the 4 years that I've been in this position, I think it's really improved. I think there's a new enthusiasm for this is really cool. And, we want to start a Twitter account because we're fired up about it. We love where we work. We love recruiting students. We love teaching students. And that's been a huge step forward, I think. And going from there, I think there's still plenty of room to grow, but I think you've got to start with the culture. And I think we now have something to build on.
You get the opportunity, from what I at least see on social media, to go talk to classes on campus often. When you do that, what's the reaction you get when you tell students about what you do and how you do it from them? Do their eyes light up? Are they like, oh, that's how that works? Or it takes that much time? What do you get out of students when you tell them about what you do on a daily basis?
Well, it depends on what time the class starts in terms of whether people's eyes light up or not. But I think the biggest sign of that working is how many students who are now working in this office who were in classes that I spoke to. We have a student interns team of 4, and they're all new this semester. So that's kind of the deal with internships, is the whole point is they move on to something else, right? But it kind of creates a revolving door of sorts that we're trying to slow down just a little bit, just by making the experience as valuable as possible. But I think that I may get more out of it than they do, because I enjoy going and speaking to classes, and that's really important to me, because whenever I do it, I think about all of the professionals who took time out of their days to speak to public relations and journalism classes that I was in. And so I think that's a really important thing. And I really just want to share, almost evangelize this mission of social media as a positive thing. And I think that I don't want them to be heading into their careers scared to death of showing a little bit of personality on their accounts for fear of whatever, everybody knows where the line is, and most people don't cross it. But you see, that's what's in the news.
Yeah.
Is the people who say something racist, sexist, derogatory on their social media accounts, and they're fired. But I don't want students to confuse that with being
having a
themselves.
personality.
Show who you are. So I think they get something out of it, and I think I get something out of it too. But I love what I do, and I just hopefully can kind of instill that in them, that yes, this is something that will be available to you. There's no question something like this is going to be available for you when you graduate if you want it.
Yeah. The one thing I find interesting now, and I'm sure you see it in yourself, being in the role that you are, but how you've become an advocate for the university that you love, not because you run the Missouri State account, because you share these things on your personal Twitter account about, the importance of education and, the importance of Missouri State's budget and how it can help the university and things like that. As myself wanting to be an informed alum, I try to treat the same way, but it's funny now because I'm now removed from the sports world, and I'm working in the education world, not in college, for a school district, obviously. But my wife, being a teacher, I've always recognized the importance of education. But now when you're behind the scenes and you see what it takes and what the daily basis is, you're like, man, like I literally now have this newfound sort of like invigorized vision of like how much student, like the next generation can change the world. Like now, this is my thing. This is my new personal revelation I've had in the last year of my job. High school kids are like seriously amazing. Like I sit here and I'm like, man, I was doing like things like that in college, and here they are doing it as a sixth grader. Technology has obviously aided things, but I'm still super impressed about their motivation, B, their talent and skill, and like just their will to want to actually be successful. And there's seriously a lot of it. And to me, like they're getting it from their teachers, they're getting it from their peers, they're getting it from people that can sort of instill that in them and get it out of them. So, and I literally, like in this last year, I've had that with one of the classes that are one of the high schools in my district that are doing the game programs for my marketing program that I'm doing. And I'm like, man, these kids are rock stars. Like this is stuff that I literally took from working in college athletics and said, I want to replicate this here. They took it, ran with it, and came up with newer ideas. So I'm invigorated about the importance of education and what it means. I see that now you on your own account, you're talking about the importance of education and importance of, Missouri State's mission and funding and things like that. Did that happen just in the role and you took a hold of it and because of the voice and you learned and just took it all in? And did you see that happening like personally inside? Did that just a matter of cause and effect? You're here, so I'm fighting for the cause.
I think that's a big part of it, for sure, because I mean, there was never any question of where I was going to go to college. But I also wasn't really sure what college was all about. I initially, when I was a kid, I kind of like rebuked the idea because I was like, you're going to pay somebody to tell me what to do?
Right.
I don't think
Seriously.
so. But then you get into it and you understand the value of relationships. And there's some relationships that you can only form on a college campus because it's such a fascinating, living, breathing thing, especially the campus at Missouri State. But I'm a product of a very good Springfield public school system that gave me the kind of the baseline education that I needed to be successful. Some years were harder than others. I think, like middle school is hard for everybody just because of the situation of what middle school is at that age. But it was still overall really good experience, and just being kind of on the other side of it and really being able to understand what it takes to to educate, 26,000 people, which is more or less the enrollment that we have this year, it takes an astronomical amount of money because you have to have the personnel on faculty. You have to have the support staff. I think it's more important to have jobs like mine in the digital space to communicate with the high school students now spend most of the time looking at websites on their mobile devices.
That's right.
So I mean, that's a piece of the inspiration, is just having been through it and understanding now what it takes, truly millions and millions and millions of dollars, but also understanding that it's an investment. And I'm very, very happy that Governor Parson is making his top priority workforce development, because that is going to be such a crucial piece of this state's future. Is we have to be training people to not just fill jobs, but fill jobs where there's gaps. And so I now understand the importance of training students in nursing is a big one here at the university. And just jobs like that, where there's more jobs available than people who want to come in and work them. But the other thing that you mentioned about today's high school students and younger, they are incredibly bright.
Yeah.
And I may just be, misremembering on the negative side about myself growing up, but it's like, I don't remember being this polished.
I don't either.
When I was 15, 16 years old, I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I'm just blown away by how many students are actually going to come in tomorrow on Saturday for the Presidential Scholarship Interview Day.
Okay.
And I can tell you with absolute certainty, these students have their lives put together maybe more than I have my life put together right now. And they're half my age. So that's another big piece of motivation, is I love working with students on this campus, because there's that old cliche of, they keep you young, but I think it's true. And I think there's something very unique and wonderful about Generation X. And they're just now coming up through the ranks, and they're just now kind of getting into college. So I am more optimistic about the next 4 years than you can even imagine, because they have it together. And it's just important for, people our age and older not to screw it up.
Very true. An example for you of them having it together. So one of the elementary school, actually two of the elementary schools in the school district where I work, in the Winsville School District, they have this competition called the Amazing Shake. And what it is, they learn how to present themselves. And these are elementary kids, mind you. These are, 6th grade and younger. They learn how to proper handshake, hold a conversation, eye contact, you name it. All that stuff that you need to know how to, like, have a proper job interview, to just hold a conversation with another adult. Things that I'm thinking to myself, man, when I was in college, was I comfortable doing these things? I was a judge in this competition. I was a judge for several of the different grade levels. And when we got to the 5th and 6th graders, I was literally blown away of how they, I'd have one young lady come up and say, "Hello, I'm Amanda. How are you today?" "Hi, Amanda. I'm doing good. What's your name?" And I didn't say my name. And she prompted me to tell me, "Oh, I'm Derek." She goes, "Well, nice to meet you. Are you enjoying your day here at Stone Creek?" This is sort of like, and holding a conversation. And even topping that, another one of the younger, he would come over and says, "I hear you say you didn't have any pets. You didn't like having a dog?" Like he would follow up from the conversation, because he'd hear me tell her, "No, I don't have any pets." He goes, "Well, why don't you have any pets?" They know these cues now of like how to be proper. And it's literally like, there are some adults that can't do these things, and they're learning these things at the elementary level. So like, just imagine when they get to high school, they're learning, how to be social and how to do things the proper way. Those things are like, just to me, they're awesome that they're picking these things up and learning them at an earlier age to advance themselves. Because, gosh, who knows where, technology is going to take things in another 5, 10, 15, 20 years, even. God, who even can think that far? But just as fast as changing it. I just have this new outlook now of what the last year has done. It's kind of like, wow, these kids are pretty special. So I'm like, when they get to college and you see them, like they're even more polished, as you mentioned now. They got their stuff together. I'm like, I was just happy I didn't have the same major in college. These kids are coming through high school knowing what they want to major in when they get to college. So it's just awesome. So we spent all this time. I didn't think we'd go this long. And I even asked you, I got to make this the last talking point. When I was in school at Missouri State, and you as a lifelong Springfieldian will appreciate this. So I think you know the story of how I ended up down here. It's been in the alumni magazine about my college choices as an 8th grader were North Carolina, Duke, and Georgetown. College basketball fan, go figure. When sophomore year of college or high school hit, reality set in. It's like, yeah, you're not going to those schools. And then the choices became University of Kansas, Southeast Missouri State, and Mizzou. And I actually did apply to the University of Kansas. And I actually thought I was going to end up at Southeast Missouri State because they had a communications art program. That's what I wanted to do. I got as far with Kansas as actually getting the book for residence housing. And like, that was the next step. I never did that because at my high school, the college visit day, I got a letter, an application to apply for a minority student scholarship. I did that and I was awarded it. And I was like, well, I should probably apply for the school if I got if I'm eligible for the scholarship. So I did, and I did get in. I say all that. So we have this great program here at Missouri State called SOAR for incoming freshmen to come in, placement tests, tour the university, see the residence housing, all that great stuff you do before school starts. I didn't make the one like in the early summer. I didn't make the one in the late summer. August hits, and I still hadn't come down for a visit yet. But I was applied, and yeah, I'm coming down. Yes, I've got residence housing. I'm living in Freddie, but I don't have any classes yet. I don't know what I'm taking. So I come down here the Friday that the dorms open before school starts on the Monday. I take my placement test for English and math, and immediately after I do that, I get registered for classes. So I got barely a full load of classes fit in there. I got like the minimum 12 hours or something. And at the time, I'm like, I think I'm going to do something in art. And I can't remember. And it was my own fault because I never came down for SOAR. But I can't remember the gentleman that was there. I remember I was in Glass 101, the big auditorium, doing the test and registered for classes at that moment. And I'm sure they don't do it this way anymore. It's like, well, if you're in New York, you should probably take one of these classes. And I took drawing 1, which is at the time was called a foundations class. But to be in the program that I wanted to be in, I should have taken at least 2 classes. I should have taken drawing 1 and 2D design, art 100. I did not. I only took drawing. So I got my classes. I had 12 hours, minimum amount to be a freshman. My family comes down. They move me into Freddie, leave my stuff in the dorm. I take the test. I go back to Freddie, and my stuff's just sitting there, and they left to go back to St. Louis. And this is how college starts. And they look back. We laugh about it now. We go, yeah, man, we just kind of just dropped you off and left you. So that's how college for me started at Missouri State. But I did get it figured out. I passed classes, did great. I got my second semester straightened out and got the classes I needed to get back on track and all that fun stuff. But that's how I started. And I had no idea about this school. I never took a visit. I'm in Springfield, Missouri. Never knew anything about the town. This is a long way for me to tell you that I had, I can't think of the science class, but I had my lab partner who was a sophomore says, hey, you want to go to a basketball game? This is in November. I'm like, sure. And we go to the Bears basketball game, air quotes, Bears basketball game. Says it'll be fun. We go. I was sitting in the bleachers because we just walked in, show the zip card, and get a student ticket. It's free. And out come the Lady Bears. I'm like, hey, this is women's basketball. I'm taking it myself. I had no clue. I'm like, oh, okay. So I sort of scratched my head. We're here, whatever. Something to do. Little did I know in 1997 in the fall that a young lady by the name of Jackie Stiles was also a freshman that year. And that game that I went to, I never forget it. I tell this story all the time. They're playing the University of Illinois. They were ranked. I don't remember the ranking. I know they were top 25, though. And for some reason, they were in Springfield, Missouri, playing a road game in November. Go figure that, too, of how the difference of college sports in 1997 versus 2018. But the Lady Bears blew the doors off of them, and the crowd was insane. That game, I will never forget because Jackie had I want to say maybe 20 or 30 points, and they won.
Of course she did.
Because that's all she ever did. That game... And I think it might have been that year. It could have been her sophomore year, but they played Drake at home. And it was either Friday or Saturday night. It was an ESPN2 game, and everybody wore pajamas to the game. Sold out. And I mean, it was crazy. Two of my favorite Missouri State sports memories right there are Lady Bears games. Not to mention the game where she broke the record and I had to sneak in because they ran out of student tickets. And me and my roommate, my friend at the time, Mark, we didn't miss many, not just Lady Bears, but Missouri State sporting events at the time. We were all, if we could go, we were going. But it came time for her to break the NCAA scoring record. And he skipped class. No, did I skip class? One of us skipped classes to stand in line to get the student tickets, and we didn't get student tickets. So all that day, we're bummed that we can't go to this game because she's going to break the record tonight. Well, we knew a guy that was working as a student worker at Hammond Student Center, the racquetball courts. Because, just show your zip card and go play racquetball, but then I'll come get you and I'll get you into the building. So he walks us down to the event level of Hammond Student Center and then takes us back courtside and says, all right, just go up there and stand on the concourse and you're good. Because that's where everyone will be standing. It's standing room only tonight. We're like, really? Okay. We're standing there, first half. We see an usher checking for standing room tickets. What do? We go to the other side of the concourse. What happens about 15 minutes later? We see an usher checking for standing room tickets. So we go back to the other side of the concourse. So that's how we watched Jackie Stiles break the record. But it's a story we can tell now and laugh about because, we're students and student attendance was different back then. But that was that one game. She's breaking the record and we went to every game. And not that we, it wasn't a badge of honor or nothing like that. We weren't looking for a handout. But it's like, how do we come to every game all these 4 years and we can't see the one where she's going to break the record? So, two of my favorite memories from forever. And I can't forget the Sweet 16, which is oddly enough, William Fauntleroy going into the Missouri State Athletics Hall of Fame this weekend. Mm-hmm. For you, you've been in Springfield all the time. You have anything that stands out, from your time just being a fan? Because you've been involved in Maroon Madness. I'm guessing 2011 might be a pretty special year for you. For me, I have a different perspective on it because I was working in the Valley then, and I had that neutral, can't cheer kind of thing going on. But it's pretty cool to see student section filled to the brim in JQH Arena. Beating Wichita State, beating Creighton, beating Northern Iowa. All these teams that just caused Bears heartache for so many years in basketball. We've had great baseball runs. I have a new appreciation for volleyball after Lily Johnson and, one of the teams that consistently make the NCAA tournament. John Leamy's one of my favorite coaches.
What a guy.
I mean, so you've had all these perspectives working athletic communication, being in Springfield, now being a university staffer. So you can see all this up close and personal. Anything for you stand out athletic wise, for Missouri State? Oh yeah. I mean, I kind of share the same types of memories that you do because 2010, 2011 was an amazing year for the men's basketball team. Was for the women's basketball team too. Being in the heart of the Casey Garrison era, with the Lady Bears at the time. So that was amazing too. But what I remember is my time in Maroon Madness, and
I just remember the work that we put in and how much it paid off.
Yeah.
Because I think I like to fondly remember the student section as being full all the time, but I don't think that was the case, especially not on your break games and not on your Tuesday night games and et cetera, against the a Tuesday night against Drake is not going to draw as much as a Wichita State will. But my fondest memories are probably in that 3-year stretch I was on the Maroon Madness executive board. And it was really, the winning was fun, and the Valley title was fun, but what I remember are the people. And I remember that group of 100 to 200 students who were always there. No matter what, if school was in session, they were there. And that's really what it became about for us, was we were there not just to watch basketball, but we were as much of a team as the guys and the girls in the court were. So I just have so many friendships that last to this day for Maroon Madness. Yeah. And, games wise, I think baseball winning the regional in Fayetteville was incredible, especially, again, kind of redeeming themselves from the super regional loss 1 or 2 years prior in Fayetteville that really stung quite a bit. But that one was especially sweet, I think, because that really, I think, cemented this era of Bears baseball as they can beat anybody. Yeah. And so I think just going to Fayetteville and the Jeremy Ironman walk-off home run against Oklahoma State to take them from behind the 8 ball of the losers bracket to all of a sudden you're in the catbirds seat if you win. So there was that, and there was Jordan Knudsen striking out. I can't remember who Arkansas's batter was, but getting that third strike to ice that regional and do it in Fayetteville was amazing. So I'd say really those two things. I have a lifetime of memories, but those are the two that I think really stand out to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's funny. I don't know. Some people call it torture. Like me and my buddy, he had never been to JQH Arena, and we came down for a game this past December. And he's looking around. He's like, "Man, 1999 seems like such a long time ago." I'm like, "You're telling me?" I mean, it's just funny. That's like the last time the team's been to the NCAA tournament, but baseball's been so good. Volleyball's been so good. So we don't want to forget the teams that have had success. So I don't know. I got no words for just the randomness of being a Missouri State Bears sports fan, is that we live and die with them as fans, especially those of us that just continue, not just want to, beat down on them for losing. Like, we understand they're student athletes. We understand, like, they're people just like us. Like, take a chill pill, like random old guy that's gonna pound on a 19-year-old kid that also needs to go to class on campus. Like, easy. So I don't know. I have my feelings. We won't even go down that road.
No, we don't want to go there. No.
So, all right, I've kept you too long. I didn't think we'd go that long, but I always like to wrap up with my 5 questions at the end. So we'll do this and we'll finish it up. I guess my first one, we just hit on it. But I'll ask it again. Your favorite SMS/MSU sports memory?
Rushing the court after the Wichita State de facto conference championship game in 2011.
Madness that year? Okay.
Yep.
So I'm working the ESPN TV game. So I'm sitting on the TV side of the court. And I do remember rushing the court, and I remember the player standing on the table and Nafis Ricks with the I need a job.
It was nuts. It was just utter chaos, and it was so on brand with that team.
Yes, it was.
It was perfect. Yeah, perfect celebration.
That was a fun year. So there's a thing on Missouri State's Twitter that there are a couple of things that tend to be a little bit more. they didn't have a life of their own, and they continue to go. One of them being parking here that, students always want to ask about, snow days. Is it one of those, or is there something that is the talk of the Missouri State campus in terms of social media that you wish would go away?
I do kind of wish the parking conversation would go away, and we really, as a communications team, really are trying to communicate facts. That if South lots fill up in a hurry. I mean, that was true when I was a student. It's probably true when you were a student. But if you're willing to go just a few blocks north of Bear Park North, there's 3 parking lots out there that I think anybody with a parking permit can use, whether you're yellow, red, green, blue, or orange. You can park there, hop the bear line, come to campus. It's not the most convenient thing in the world, but those are new. Is the thing to keep in mind is students asked for more parking, and the university built more parking. It's just not on the doorstep.
Can't make everybody happy. All right, number 3. Do you think, and this is honest answer, just tell me your first thing that comes to mind. Do you think the Royals will ever win another World Series in your lifetime?
I do. Yes.
You sound pretty confident.
Absolutely. It's hard to win the World Series. But I would have to believe that in the next few decades, they're gonna find a way to do it again, because I think they have the right leadership team in place. I think they are working on the things they did wrong on the first go around, and it's just going to be better this time. Yeah. So they're going to have a more sustainable talent flow from this point forward. Sports
is so weird because I could probably find a random, not that we'd find many San Diego Padres fans here in Springfield, Missouri, but if I asked the same question, I'm sure they'd be like, man, probably not. Like, it's just, or a Chiefs fan, like their heart's been broken so many times. Right. And it's like, will we ever get there? So, but you sound pretty confident.
But
I can easily say that I think the Cardinals will win another World Series in my lifetime. And say that it's so terrible. I say that so nonchalantly, and I'm sure there's going to be some non-Cardinals fans that will hear me and be like, God, that's so annoying, but I get it. So, all right. Question 4. If you had to choose between Facebook and Twitter, which one do you kill off?
I would kill Facebook twice.
Any particular reason why?
I can't figure it out. Yeah. I have, and it's the algorithm, as you know. It's
like a moving target.
It's infuriating. But at the same time, I have a great deal of respect for the people who have made themselves billionaires off of that platform. They know what they have, and they're not going to give you a free ride anymore. Yeah. And that if you're going to have any success on Facebook, you'd better pony up and put some money into it. And that's actually been a big project for us recently, is trying to take some recruiting dollars and instead of funneling them into the digital space with paid Facebook. And again, we are in the infancy of this project, and we're at the stage where we're going to go, well, we don't really know what we're doing, but let's see what happens. And so we'll at least have a baseline going forward. But there's a variety of reasons I don't like Facebook, but that's the main one. It's just you can't beat the system.
Yeah. All right, and the last one. This is one thing in your life that you could go back and change. Could be anything. What would it be?
That is an incredibly hard question. If I could go back and change anything in my life, I would have become fluent in Spanish. In the process of looking for jobs before and then just kind of knowing the situation now, I really think that being bilingual or trilingual or what have you is going to be a deciding factor in who gets jobs. Just because we are in a global environment now. We can no longer pretend that we only work within our own little bubble of the world. And I see that every day, because it's not often, but there are times when we have Spanish speaking prospective students who want to know, how do I apply to go to Missouri State University? And they don't speak English. And so the best I can do, given the decisions I have made in my life, is thank the powers that be for Google Translate and being able to have instant translation of an English sentence into a Spanish sentence. So it's not a regret, but it's something I wished, if I could like snap my fingers and have an ability that's not a superpower or something like that, that's what I would do. So I would be more prepared, I think, to communicate in this ever-changing global world, which I think is a wonderful, wonderful thing.
You're making me feel awful, because in high school, I took 2 years of Spanish, and in college, I took 3 semesters of it. Guess how much Spanish I know?
Well, maybe a little bit. You might know.
Yeah, I do. I take that. I do know a very little bit. Small. I can ask where the bathroom is and ask for a hamburger and fries. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't.
Nothing that would help you.
It's so hard. Like, the third class in college was conversational Spanish. And man, I struggled. It was so hard. Man, it wasn't by choice that I took it. I was a Bachelor of Arts major, and degree was non-comprehensive. And I did some tinkering with mine, because there was no digital media and all that stuff. And that's what I really wanted to do. And my last semester, which was interesting, I took a class that was independent study to fulfill my degree requirement. But the semester before that, I had my last requirements for my Bachelor of Arts, and Spanish 3 was one of them. And I mean, we read a book, Spanish, and talked about it in class in Spanish. And man, I could get through it, because thank goodness for having a Spanish English translate and knowing some of the words and knowing a lot of the verbs. Like, that's helpful to help move the sentence, literally to help move the sentences along. But man, I look back now, like, I did not retain much of that. And I don't know, it's just because I wasn't using it on a regular basis. Like, I wasn't taking it to go be a Spanish teacher. It was required. I had to have a foreign language, and I don't retain any of it. I feel like it's like wasted. And here you are wanting it. Like,
well, it is incredibly hard. And that's why I have so much admiration for our international students that we have on campus to come to the United States, sometimes fight tooth and nail to come to the United States, and learn English and take their classes in English.
Yeah, imagine what they're dealing with. As I was talking about struggling with learning Spanish in a class, and getting a degree. It's absolutely amazing to me. And, that is just that's one of the best things about Missouri State, I think, is, Springfield is not the most diverse place, even in the state of Missouri. But that's the great thing that I think Missouri State brings to this city, is students from all over the world, from all walks of life, who come in and sometimes against all odds finish their degree. And that's, for me, that's really where it comes from, because I look at what they're doing and I go, I could not go to your country and do that. So I wish I'd better equip myself. It's easy to say that hindsight now, when you've got a front row seat to tell those stories.
Absolutely.
About those people graduating and going on to do great things in public affairs. Got that one in there, coming from Missouri State. So, Kevin, it's been a pleasure, sir. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you very much. And always a pleasure to talk to you. And thanks again for the opportunity.